All right. So thanks for joining us, guys. How to be a rock star IPM. I have Greg Thompson here. He's one of our customers from Autoleave.
Hi.
And I'm going to talk through some slides, a couple of things, and then we're going to have an interview with him, a real live rock star. And since you came, if you're interested, you can make a guitar pick out of your name badge if you'd like. We have a stamper that once you've passed this class, you can you can make yourself a guitar pick if you want. So I guess first off, who here considers themselves to be an IPM, an Innovation Program Manager? Raise your hand high. Okay, cool. And who maybe thinks of themselves perhaps as more of like a sponsor or either an executive in charge of the program, not really hands-on as an Innovation Program Manager, but maybe more of like a executive sponsor of the program? Anybody? Okay, cool. So I mean, I think that the purpose of this is to help everybody. A lot of it you may already know, you may not. It's going to be very free flow. I'm going to ask him some questions. You guys are going to ask him some questions. But just want to help everyone better understand, what the role is of a innovation program manager, or what we call an IPM, and also how you can be better at it, how you can help people on your team to be better at it, how you can help other people in your company to understand what your role is. And how together everyone could be better and more successful in innovation. Cool? All right. I need to unpause so that I see how much time we have. There's no time checker here, so I'll keep you in check, don't worry.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right, so basically it's not uncommon in an organization, especially when they're first getting started with an innovation program or researching the potential of having one, that they underestimate the role of the innovation program manager. I work in sales, account management, new business, and many times when a new prospect contacts us and is looking to get started in innovation and thinking about maybe purchasing Bright Idea to be part of it, they don't realize that there's an actual person or people who need to run the program and own the program, and that it's not just an easy job. It's a great job. It has a lot of opportunity, but it doesn't always get the attention and resources that are needed when it's first getting started. So a little bit about what an IPM does, right? I mean, we all sort of know these things. Responsible for running the program, owning the program. Program ownership is really important. I think Mike yesterday and Diane and Steve all talked about how the role that they're doing to help make their program successful covers a lot of ground. And it's not necessarily just the Bright Idea platform, but it's helping to change the culture of the company, get engagement, educate people in the organization on what innovation is and how you guys can be more effective at it. Ideally, it's a full-time person who's dedicated to innovation. That's always great when that happens. Sometimes it's half a person or a quarter of a person or just one arm of a person, which makes it difficult. But over time, if the program is successful, and we'll talk about a little bit about what a successful program is, recording outcomes, having an impact on the organization, then the person or team starts to grow, and you have more resources dedicated, and then make an even larger impact on the organization. Matt mentioned yesterday in his talk in the keynote that 73% of companies now have a formalized innovation strategy that they're setting up. So that's great, but there are not, if you do a look around on the internet, there's some jobs that are now around innovation specifically in organizations. But what we find, and what he talked a little bit about, is that all different titles and names and such are considered innovation. So it's still forming. So it's not just a given that if you're the IPM, you're going to have innovation in your title. You could work in product. You could work in process improvement, change, things like that. What's that? Or you could just be a Rockstar. No, you saw that. That wasn't that hard to find. So a little bit about the job description of a IPM, especially Rockstar IPM. It's both skills, which you would see in a, maybe in a job rec, but it's also traits, personality. And I think that just being at this event and seeing and talking and networking with the folks here, you're probably, if you didn't realize it before, you're realizing it more and more, that it's a certain type of person. And I've been at Bright Idea for 9 years. Love it. It's a long time in the tech world to stay at a job. But it's because of the people that we get to work with. All of you guys. Everybody has a certain sparkle, a itch to make things better, and together we're all just trying to do that. So let's see. So some tips for success. This was talked a lot about yesterday as well. Being able to clearly define the problem or the opportunity is a big one. And sometimes innovation program managers aren't sure that that really falls on them. They might think, well, I'm really just a tool provider. But there's a lot more to it if you want to be successful. And being able to help with more of the consultative aspects of the process is definitely important. Putting the customer first, I heard that mentioned a couple of times yesterday as well, making sure that you're thinking about them and bettering both your customer, but also your internal customer who you're helping to innovate. Celebrating failure, hey, not everything's going to work out perfect. And I think Steve mentioned he had the guy who had submitted 21 ideas, but on the 22nd idea, it was a winning idea, and he was, rewarded for it. So celebrate those failures, protect the people who are submitting ideas, encourage them, and let them know that, hey, just because your idea isn't winning, that doesn't mean it's not important. We're all learning from your contributions. Dolly Parton, had to throw her in. And then just a little bit on, so this is one of Matt's slides from yesterday, and I just took a photo of it while he was talking and wanted to throw it in because of his 5 items that he mentioned, the fact that innovation teams are ready to roll, right? So it really is the fact that we're having these innovation teams that are starting to be built and innovation program managers like yourself, it's all on you. Making innovation happen, it comes down to the people who are running the program. So then segue into Greg. So a little bit about Greg. He's been a customer of Bright Idea for about 5 years. Works at Autoliv in Detroit, and a little bit about Autoliv, which I should have memorized, but they develop and manufacture automotive safety systems for all major automotive manufacturers worldwide. 80 facilities, 60,000 employees in 27 countries, 18 development and engineering centers in 9 countries with 20 test tracks. That's more than any other safety manufacturer in the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit, let him introduce himself, talk a little bit, ask some questions, but please note any questions that you have along the way because you get to do the Q&A after I do. So Greg, thanks for joining and letting us pick your brain on your experience here. So maybe tell us, let's see, so rewind 5 years to when you were first getting started with Bright Idea. Where did your initiative stem from? And I ask because sometimes a person like yourself will give us a call and say, hey, I've got this idea. I want to, gather ideas for the company, and it's sort of this grassroots thing that I'm thinking of. Or maybe it's a top-down initiative where an executive is saying, hey, Greg, I think that you should do this. I think you're going to be good at it. Or maybe you applied for the job. You actually didn't work there previously. So there's different ways that people paths lead to this job. So tell us a little bit about how yours got started.
Sure. So, maybe 6 years ago, there was our CTO engaged with McKinsey to look into how to increase the bang for the buck out of our R&D spending. So, as McKinsey do, they write you a massive bill and they give you like a 57,000 page report that basically says, you're doing okay, but you could do better, and you should figure out how to do better. So, sweet. Thank you, guys. So I kind of got brought in at that point. I think they made 6 or 8 recommendations, I can't remember. But I got 2 to work on. One was an input process, so how we figure out what things we work on. And the second one was ideation. So I'm like, okay. It was only really because I'd worked in sort of advanced development before that I got brought in. So I start to dig into this subject of ideation. And I came to a conference in UC Berkeley run by The Economist. And I was introduced to incentive and this concept of crowdsourcing that I'd never ever heard of before. So I kind of dug into that a little bit and started investigating, chatting to different people. I met with Michelle and really just got going on that. I would say a tiny part of the innovation piece, looking at purely how to improve and increase ideation. And this was like a part-time project for me. I was sort of loaned out from my job to do it. Maybe I kind of handed off half my team and yeah, just kind of got the ball rolling that way.
And so what was your job that you had when this came about?
I managed an R&D team, research and development and we were working on vision and radar technology, which is now the cornerstone of the self-driving car sensor suite.
Cool, cool. Cool. All right, so it was sort of a top-down initiative, it seems, from McKinsey. So as you started, you chose Bright Idea, thanks, appreciate it. And as you started getting going and setting up your program, nothing in life ever goes as expected. So what sort of surprises did you come about as you tried to roll out this initiative?
I guess in terms of processing or methodologies, I think there's certainly an idea that I can buy a tool, therefore I've solved the problem. And that's absolutely not the case. You know, a tool is an assistant. It's a chaperone. I was just in the session about the hack app, and I think there's an interesting confusion between what a hackathon is and what a tool to help you manage a hackathon is. There's a difference between innovating a product and having a tool to help you innovate a product. So moving along this journey of trying to actually just understand this tool and then coming up with a basic methodology to support this tool, then you quickly see how it spans out into the whole organization of how to really create impact is an organizational endeavor. So the tool just helps you focus on what you need to do in the organization. But it wasn't until you get deeply into these things and you run a few challenges and you're like, you know what, that challenge was kind of stupid. It doesn't, that no one's really gonna work on this.
Right.
I can run the challenge, I can get all this stuff, but no one's gonna do anything. So that means I really have to focus on what the inputs are. And the flip side is, okay, I've got a great challenge, but we don't even have people in the company to do this if we get ideas. So it really spans out. So that's something I really learned. I guess I could talk about the dark corridor, right?
Yeah, why don't go do that? Yep. Dark corridor. It's sort of a Greg-ism. He talks a lot about the dark corridor.
So in retrospect, I would say that embarking on this journey is like being stood in this dark space, and it's a corridor and it's pitch dark, and someone says, "Run, go as fast as you can go." You know, I hope like hell there's not a wall or a corner up there. And you run and you run and then every now and again you reach to the side looking for a light switch. Then you find one, you hit it. It only lights up what happened behind you. After a while, the light starts to bleed forward a bit and you can see where you're going, but, well, partially, but you still pray like hell there's not a wall or a corner there. So it's kind of like that, because I think part of the nature of innovation and part of the nature of the people that do innovation is that you have to be happy with a dark corridor, or at least somewhat comfortable with this concept that you don't know, because that's what I've learned. That was the biggest kind of surprise, how much unknown you have to get comfortable with.
Right. Yeah. No one likes the unknown. And I'm just going to switch to this slide. So as I'm talking to you, asking you these questions, we're going to talk through the journey. We've talking a little bit about starting out. I think the dark corridor is still the starting out, although when you find a couple light switches, maybe you're starting to grow up because you're realizing that you can flip a switch on behind you, nonetheless. But as the program started to grow or expand, did you encounter any naysayers, anyone who was sort of anti or thought it wasn't going to work, didn't believe in what you were doing? And if you did, how did you handle that? Who were they and how did you handle it?
Sure. So in our company, we have a very, very strong innovation heritage. And I would say we didn't come into this. This whole project was about increasing bang for the buck. It wasn't that we're in a bad state. It's that we're a world leader. We want to stay there. Paranoia is your friend, you know. So we've got a very strong research department. We're a Swedish company, so they're located right next to Volvo. That's how we started, making seatbelts for Volvo. So they're a very strong research team. Many of the safety innovations you have in your cars today came from that place. And around the world, we have experts, very well-established experts in all of our different areas. So I think anyone who makes a product has someone like that around their organization. These guys didn't like what we were doing. They're like, this is our domain. We're the experts. We're the guys that do this. We know this. Look, we're churning out all the patents. We're world leaders. What's this crap, you know? So at the beginning, it was kind of frustrating. We're like, come on, you know, just come join the party, help people out, be there. No way, no. So on one of our technical experts, I managed to persuade him to join into one of the challenges because an engineer from a completely separate product area come out with a really amazing design concept in one of the challenges. So I said to this guy, you should look at this. I said, I've never seen anything like this before. So he came in and he went, yeah, that's really cool. So then he thought about it and then he had to kind of trump this idea. So then he posted his first idea ever that was like, okay, that's built on that. That's really cool. That's really perfect. So we finished the challenge and that. Well, then his idea never completely made it to a product exactly as he envisaged it. Because these things never do. In the way we run challenges, no idea remains intact. So then he was so pissed off. He's like, but this is the best idea. I'm the expert. I know this is the best idea. So this kind of led us to an epiphany that said, these people already do a fantastic job for us. They are great innovators in their company. They have heritage, that we have product from them. They are doing their thing. The people we're going after are the ones we never ask. So we said, okay, we don't care if you join. We're building a competitive marketplace for ideas. So we kind of made that decision. We stopped chasing these guys. And I think some of them are starting to pop in and be a bit curious because all of a sudden they're like, oh, you don't need us? You know, it's kind of like a dating game, I guess. You know, like, play a bit hard to get, you know. But yeah, it seems to have been an interesting strategy. Just let it go.
Right. Can't make them all do it.
Right.
Cool, thanks. So let's see. So as you were gaining more and more momentum with the program and started to expand, I guess first maybe tell us a little bit about how the types of challenges that you run when you're first getting started, and then how you've sort of expanded that. And I do have a screenshot here. This is what Greg's site looked like when he first got started. And maybe some of yours look similar. And then just this year, or maybe at the beginning of this year, We've changed it, and now it has a much fresher, cleaner look. So tell us just a little bit about what you were doing at the start, and how that's sort of evolved over time,
Sure.
the types of challenges and ideas.
Sure. So when I kind of first saw this concept of crowdsourcing, so it's around 6 years ago, a lot of people were talking about constantly open challenges, just sort of big electronic suggestion boxes. And I kind of dug into this a little bit, and I really didn't like the idea. I didn't like the concept that you could go through all this effort, pull in all these ideas, pull in all these different suggestions. You had no idea really where they would have to land, how much budget they were going to take, who was going to do them. It just seemed like a scary minefield every time you pull these things in. So we were talking about the targeted challenges, and I said, okay, that's it. I'm only going to do targeted challenges. So then how do you make a target challenge be most effective? So instead of looking for new areas and new white space domains, I decided to go to all of our different product areas and say, I'm going to just enhance your ideation on projects you're already going to do. So how that helps is, one, they've already got the project, they've already got the financing and the people. They have to solve the problem anyway. You're just helping them get ideas to come up with a better solution. So much of that post management and location and horse trading to get something done is gone. Also, picking the challenge, if it's on their list to do, it's already accepted as something that's necessary to be done. So we have basically 11 key product leaders. So we said, okay, you've all got to run one per year, and we basically run a challenge per month in like this whole rolling sequence, and they've been doing for 5 years now.
Awesome. And you did dabble in a little bit of kind of the continuous, what we announced yesterday is suggest, sort of, but I think more focused than that. And how has that gone? What'd you learn from expanding your use case from targeted challenges to also dabbling in a kind of an open, always going, always on?
My initial fears were correct.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's a whole different way of looking at it. So you have to remind people it exists. You have to find a way to stimulate them. And in the end, the way we try and stimulate people to participate is basically throw out a theme of the month. Well, that's just almost a targeted challenge, right?
Right.
And then still on the flip side of it, once you've got something interesting, then you've got to go scan the whole global organization and try and find a home again.
Right.
So it's been, we leave it running, but it's barely on life support.
Yeah. How much time would you say you spend on that one, on the always open?
Me? Slightly less than none.
Okay. I appreciate your honesty.
Right. I mean,
and how many ideas have you implemented from there?
From there? 2.
2?
Yeah.
Well, it's more than I thought.
In about 18 months, I think.
Okay. All right.
But I mean, I know if you put the work in, you probably get more out.
Right.
I'm sure of that. But I mean, you compare this thing that's been open for maybe 18 months, and I think we've maybe had 35 ideas submitted in there in 18 months, versus a typical challenge we do. We get average maybe 500 people come into that challenge, and on average about 40 ideas, and on average we pick at least 5 to work on every one so far.
Wow. Over
5 years. So that the whole scale is completely different. I think people thrive more from constraint than they do a clean piece of paper.
Right. A little more direction. I'm going to go a little off, but one question on stating the problem, defining the topic. You have a Gregism for this as well. What's your trick to now, I guess I'll take a step back and to sort of reference what Mike from Black & Decker was saying yesterday. He had the two circles, and one was sort of broader topics where he can get larger engagement. The other side of the circle being more engineering or very specific. And Greg runs more of the engineering specific type, hence the 500 people and 50 ideas or so. So how do you, I mean, those are very, the more specific you get, you need to be even clearer on exactly what you're looking for ideas on. So what's your tips, your tricks on that?
So we have people developing seatbelts, which are very mechanical engineering people. We have people developing steering wheels. So that's kind of die casting, molding, this kind of thing. We have people making airbags. They are really rocket scientists. These are guys that used to work on space shuttle engines and things like this. Then we have electronics people. We have radio frequency guys. We have radar people. We have computer vision people. So it's a really, really diverse set of highly technical people. So that's what we want. We want all of those different people to look at the challenges and give diverse perspectives. And I would say 75% of the ideas we pick come from a non-domain specialist. So that to me is really important. So therefore, writing a challenge statement that can be understood by a general community is a bit more of an art form. And I think you're talking about the spouse test.
The
right?
spouse test.
And that's what I always say to people. If your spouse doesn't know what you do in your job, take your challenge home and get them to read it. And if they can comprehend this thing, you're maybe onto something. So, that's kind of like the final test. But, certainly if I get a seatbelt guy writing a challenge, I'll take it to someone in our sensor team and say, does this make any sense to you? So we kind of cross-pollinate a little bit just to make sure people can get past the jargon. I don't know if you've ever seen these side curtain airbags, these huge, they look like an air mattress run down the side. So we call them inflatable curtain or IC. So we ran a challenge on this inflatable curtain, and the electronics guy said, I don't see an integrated circuit in there. So it's just a simple thing. You talk in your jargon and people just don't understand.
Right.
So.
Cool, thanks. So getting into more of the third point, professionalization and the path to enlightenment. So I think that what makes you a rock star other than your outfit, just kidding, and he does play music, but being a rock star IPM is, yes, you've had time, you've matured the program, you've worked really hard, but another thing is that about a year ago, you got your program to a point where you could go from a team of one, more or less, a single IPM, to then hire in a new IPM so that you could alleviate yourself to do other things. So tell us a little bit about the process of hiring a new person, how that went as you were looking for them, and also maybe get in a little bit to what it freed you up to do.
Sure. I like the term professionalization. I heard it talked about with respect to quality systems. Quality was this kind of vague thing until someone wrote a book about quality, and then 50 million people wrote books about quality, and it became a professional thing. You can be a professional quality engineer, right? So I think that there's an aspect of creating a structure and a framework for thinking about innovation, and a structure for running challenges, and a kind of a discipline and a connection of, like they talk about in finance sometimes, automate the things you can automate so it just gets going and does its own thing, and then you can focus on the jazzy bits that you have to make up a bit. So we went through over the 4 years prior, really creating a bit of a system and honing it down to how we start a challenge, how we kick it off, how we check the statement, this kind of thing. So got to a pretty good point with that, and I was really just able to do it quite simply, and it was kind of almost an ever decreasing amount of effort I had to do, but still, I was asked to lead a corporate innovation work stream where we were looking to boost innovation globally across the board, not just our challenges. So I must have been good. I'd done something amazing in a previous life, because this guy from Romania pings our CTO and says, I was hired as an innovation manager in Romania by our local organization, and I think you guys do some innovation stuff, and I'd like to kind of talk to you about it. And we're like, so I get to talk to this guy, and he's a rock star. He's done his research, he knows the whole systems, he's got all these ideas of what he wants to do, and he wants to start off an idea management tool. And I'm like, way ahead of you, bud. I've got one. Do you want to run it? And he's like, could I? And I'm like, yeah. He said, the thing is, it's your baby. You've built this thing. You've made it. You've done all this work. You know, do you? You know, I don't just want to carry on something that's yours. It's funny you should say that. In the last 4 years, Bright Idea have put all these new features in and all these new designs and stuff, and I just haven't done them. Go for it. Redesign the thing, make it yours, and go run it. So he's kind of been on board now, I would say, since the beginning of the year. Again, it wasn't even a proper hiring. It's like kind of did an agreement with his boss that, all right, you can get to use the tool for your local needs, and the payback is he manages it for the global needs. So yeah, he's on board, he's doing that, and he's like a wild Mustang at the moment that we need to put a saddle on, and he will be watching this video, so Laszlo, you know what I'm talking about. But it's good energy, you know what I mean? I'd rather work with someone with a great vision and an excess of energy and all the traits that Michelle was talking about, and try and aim it in the right direction than have a donkey. Just
got to get a saddle on him, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome. And Laszlo is here. He's in the other workshop. Mm-hmm. But
he's heard enough of me speak. Yeah.
Tall guy.
Yeah.
Who looks like he's from Romania. Not really. I mean. Looks like everybody. So, all right. Quick time check. We're doing pretty good. So when you were able to, you know, you still have involvement in the program, right? You have ownership over the platform and the program, but Laszlo, your bucking bronco, is taking it to new heights, running challenges in different areas beyond development, where you've been focused the last few years, which is great. He actually managed to, unbeknownst to Greg, launch 15 challenges simultaneously about a month ago, and you should ask him about it. He said he learned more in that month than he'll probably learn in 2 years. So it was, you know, in hindsight, yeah, we probably would have said, if he'd told us first, we would have told him maybe don't do that as your first project with the tool. But he actually had some really great results as far as learning. And there's some good ideas. I think he's got his work cut out for him now, because he has a whole lot of ideas that are good he needs to figure out what to do with. But it's basically, I guess, talk a little bit about because you're able to grow this program, kind of bring it through this professionalization where it's kind of a important part of the organization now, and what you've learned in doing that, and now what your path looks like. So as your Rockstar IPM, you were able to move out here to California for a short amount of time to work on some other projects and such. So how did running the program and owning the program and all of that help lead you to where you are now?
Like I kind of said a little bit earlier, the great thing about running challenges, for me, running challenges now is one part of the innovation toolkit, one part. But running the challenge repeatedly. I'm one of these circular learning people. I have to revisit something multiple times before it gets in there, you know. And in running challenge after challenge and seeing what you encounter that blocks you or stops you or derails you, it's typically organizational. It's typically your ability to execute or your inability to engage, or it's all these different things. So if you've got the right mindset, every challenge is an ability to learn more about how your organization functions and how to get something from a need to something you can deliver and start shipping, right? So along that journey, I've really focused on that learning. So I think about 3 years ago, we got a new CTO, and he came along and he said, okay, tell me about this thing. Well, tell me about this program. What's going on with this? So we had some discussions. I showed him some stats. I showed him some of our challenges. And he said, great, I want more of this. You have a full-time job now. You're going to be your thing. So what we've now started to do is say, right, well, not every problem necessarily looks like an idea crowdsourcing problem. And that's why I think, you know, I was talking to Matt last night, you know, the whole suite of apps, to me, starts now to reflect upon a social innovation toolbox. Mm-hmm. And they are slightly different things. And, you know, there's a reason in the toolkit you have wrenches and screwdrivers and hammers. That you need different things for different problems. But in running challenges time and time again, you kind of learn, okay, that's not the right solution for this. So they've opened us up. I've picked a group of 10 people in the company, some more senior than me. That was a trick. If you're going to pick an innovation team, don't take on the worker guys. They're being killed already. Everyone's given them 15 special projects. Take on their bosses. And so that's working out really good. And we are now building a toolbox of ways to solve different problems. And we're experimenting on these things. We've created a framework within the company. And we're applying these. So now we start to get called upon really as an innovation service when the technical teams hit a wall and they say, right, I cannot meet my cost objectives for 2020. What can you do for me? So we chase down this path and experiment on different methods and different tools and different apps and things to try and get them to a solution. So this is really spawned from working on one little tool. So it's like we talked about a fractal thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's like It's this self-repeating pattern, but just that it's ever expanding, you know. So one of these things was, okay, everyone's talking about working with startups. Everyone's talking about Silicon Valley. We in the car industry, we see so much in the West Coast happening, disrupting the car industry. So sometime last year, I made a suggestion that if I'm going to lead this innovation team, and I should maybe be in the middle of where it all happens. So I moved here in January for 5 months. I'm just got extended until next March, so it's like a long 5 months. But I originally moved to the US in 1996 for 8 months. And so that was nearly 20 years ago.
So you might be here for 20 years?
So who knows, you know. Be flexible, that's part of being an IPM.
So I think that's exciting. I think that a lot of times when you're getting a new innovation program started, that it can feel like the dark corridor, can feel like you're alone. We talk about it a lot internally at Bright Idea, that we want to help support our IPMs and our customers because you're sort of the lone wolf out there in your organization trying to make change and trying to encourage people to be more creative and innovative and making sure that the executives allow for that and give time for that. So to be able to, I think it's inspiring to hear your story where you've gone from just starting this new little process to then expanding it, creating kind of an innovation thought leaders team, mm-hmm. and then being able to move to Silicon Valley or wherever makes sense to further understand innovation holistically and how you can bring that into the organization way beyond just running idea challenges. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an inspiring story for sure.
I think I just want nothing.
Yeah.
Matt, in the birds of a feather thing, Matt always talks about how we're kind of out there trying to decode the fundamental nature of things to be able to improve our innovation abilities. And that's really what I see. That's the way to kind of go after each of these experiments, each of these different tools, each of these different interactions. It's like you're trying to get to the essence of what it takes to identify a need, identify the right need, and get it out there. And there is a lot to decode. And you can learn a lot on the small little challenges, but have that, decode the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So what would you say is your biggest achievement? I already asked you about moving to San Francisco, so it can't be that answer. But most exciting, biggest achievement that you've accomplished with this new role that you've taken on and developed over the last 5 years?
Well, I mean, I guess it's, broadly speaking, I would say it's acceptance, actually, really, within our company, because it's a Swedish company, and the Swedish companies are remarkably well run. There's something about the Swedish culture and the way and the Swedish global network that's just remarkable and quite difficult to get your head around as a non-Swede, but it's a really cool thing. But it's kind of closed, it's kind of secretive, it's not a very open culture, this kind of thing. So making the first step to get them to say, yeah, we're going to actually open up questions that are normally reserved to a few people to 5,000 engineers around the world. That as a first step was the first big step. But then I think it was in our annual report last year, my innovation program was called out for a whole page, and we had like the whole breakdown of this thing, and it's being reported out to our investors, and so such a kind of organisation to go from this first step and then all the way through to the annual report, I think is, for me it's very rewarding, I think.
That's pretty awesome. Last question, and then I'll open it up to you guys. What's your one piece of advice?
Enjoy it. I mean, if you don't enjoy it, it's not easy. But I mean, people go run marathons, right? They train for a marathon. I did a half marathon. I can't even comprehend why you would want to run 26 miles, running 13 miles. And we make cars to travel that kind of distance, right? So you don't need to run, right? You're disrespecting our product. But I mean, any of this stuff is hard, right? So enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, it's just going to be horrible. It's just, you're just not going to want to do it. But if you enjoy it, it's really, really fun. And you can, I mean, I'm living here, for God's sake. It's great. It's cool.
Right. Awesome. All right. So thanks, Greg. Anybody have any questions that you want to ask? Cara has a microphone, if you do.
No.
I can ask the first question, if that's all right.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So I work with the account management team. I work with a lot of IPMs that launch programs and are just starting out. So my question to you, now that you're seasoned, is what would you say to someone who is trying to prioritize all of these, incoming needs or business problems, how to balance all of that and really focus on what is going to be the most meaningful?
I mean, I think it's perhaps a little corny, but at the beginning, focus on something you got the best chance of succeeding in, right? Because and that's why I structured those targeted challenges the way I did. They're going to get done anyway. So these teams have got to fulfill these things. So if you can get involved in something where the need is clear, and you can give people ways to get better ways to solve something they've got to do anyway, your chance of succeeding is much greater. So, and our CEO often says, bite less, chew more. So really pick something and do it right. Don't. I mean, this. I'm glad and not glad that Laszlo did 15 challenges. And I mean, he stretched his mouth a little bit, you know. But I mean, I really think that there's more to be learnt from doing one small thing impeccably well, and then trying to exceed, and then scale it. I've practiced martial arts for nearly 20 years, and my instructor says, you know, back in the days we used radios. You always you have to tune in the station before you turn the volume up, right?
Yeah.
You don't turn the volume up when you got all the static, right? So yeah,
That's good.
go small, good chance of success. Tune it in, then scale it.
Cool. Anybody else have any questions? And by the way, the mic doesn't project, it's just for the video.
And maybe it's a question for both of you in turn. How would you define a Rockstar IPM?
I dare not answer that, because by implication I'm sitting here, and that kind of means that might be me, so that's a little self-serving.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer it. So defining an IPM Rockstar, I think there's a lot of different things that play into that, right? From the effectiveness, the impact, the amount of maybe the areas of the organization in which you have the ability to impact, so not just impact in one small area, but also across a zone. I think that the fine tuning and scaling, so you can create a repeatable process, and being able to educate and help adjust the culture. But what I really think it all comes down to is having the drive and the dedication and the passion to want to make this a success. And it's like training for a marathon. It's not something that's really easy, but if you enjoy it and you focus on it and you set a goal, then you can get there. So being self-driven and making it happen.
I suppose if I put it more in terms of how to conduct your work, I've been to multiple Bright Idea events and multiple innovation events, and I kind of see a few different types of people. Over a while you see patterns, and some people seem to try to migrate into innovation as a sanctuary from the rest of the mayhem in the company. And they think, I'm going to move to this other place, the Garden of Eden. We're going to do miraculous things and everything's going to be beautiful. And okay, you're going to be moving into finance or something soon, because you're not going to last. It's about, you may get moved to one side in a focused innovation project, but your success wholly lies in how you can navigate and work within the fundamentals of the organization. So you need to be organizationally savvy. You need to have a good network, well connected. You need to be ready to go dive into the stuff that a lot of people run away from. But the cool thing is like, I was trying to think of a good illustration of this the other day, and I guess the closest I could come to was Tarzan, right? Because you've got this jungle, right? And you try and walk through a jungle, you got to hack through it's a hard thing to get through. But Tarzan jumps up in a tree, grabs a vine, and he's swinging through. So how well can you do that in your organization and get to the points you need to get something done? We're basically just in there short-circuiting the things that don't work. And I kind of think that's what we're paid for, even though they don't know it and they don't give us permission for it, but that's what we're there to do.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so first, thank you. It's a great presentation. One of the questions I had is, one of the themes that I've heard a lot is going slow and really defining your challenge and, really doing it really well. And I'm thinking, there's the chance of all my challenges running perfectly or, a little slim. So
Yeah.
have you had one that maybe, didn't go well and at the end you couldn't implement the result, or, how did you kind of do damage control? Like so that people would want to engage in the next challenge?
Yeah. So, again, when you break from the script, sometimes you kind of can feel a bad thing's going to happen, but you sort of have to go there anyway. So we did one challenge which was more at a strategic level. So there's two sides, just to give a bit of background, there's two sides of safety in vehicle engineering. There's passive safety, which is what protects you in a crash, and active safety, which is what should prevent you from having a crash. But everyone's got these ideas that these things should work together really well to really optimize safety to the maximum level. So we did a challenge about how will these things work well together. And we got incredible participation. People, it was one of the highest participation rates. And people loved it because the people on the active safety didn't understand passive and vice versa, and it became this big educational event and blah, blah, blah. And we got the highest number of ideas we'd ever had. And we're like, holy shit, what do we do with this lot? And we had to form special teams. We had to bring different kind of executives in to look at it. And then you go through it, and because it's such a general topic, there was so much junk in there. And then these different teams, high-level teams, are looking at junk. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, yeah, this is a joke, this thing, you know. So we really had to do damage control by a very consistent communication out to the community to say, right, this was an overwhelming response, and we're fessing up. This was not what we expected. We don't have the systems in place to do this. We're doing this. So we had to do damage control that way. Mm-hmm. We had to do damage control with the executive team because they were seeing things that they thought, this is a joke. But then we had to flip it around and show them the things that were not. Like the handful of things that come out that were really unique and unusual. We say that when you do things en masse, you don't get quality en masse. So it was really, it was hell, but it was insightful hell. But then we then took some steps to change the way we did the whole evaluation steps. So we put this, so like in Solvac, you've got the two stages of initial screening and the scorecarding. So that really was the way we went forward and said, we just need a small group of people that go through crap, good,
right.
good. Mm-hmm. Just do that very quick binary edit, mm-hmm. and then only put effort into the things that show promise. Then you don't trouble the SMEs or executives with the junk. It's already pre-filtered. So it worked out well. It was an unpleasant period, but we're past it. We're here and nobody died. So.
And I think it was from some of those learnings, both from Greg and other customers, that have helped guide Bright Idea down the path of creating these apps that we talked about yesterday, these templatized workflows, which doing something that's more of a discuss or like a larger, broader topic that's more about creating activity, perhaps, mm-hmm. That there's different steps. And also in Solve, with now it has a pre-screened step mm-hmm. that sort of just gets the junk out quick. It didn't have that back then when you did that. We didn't have the apps. So.
And just one other point. Mm-hmm. When you say you don't think you can run them perfectly, that's not exactly what I mean. It's run it diligently. Do it the best way you think you can do it. You will always, you can't go in saying, I'm going to run this one perfectly. It's impossible. There's still stuff you don't know. But if you take on 15 when you could be taking on one, you're going to not have enough time to think about the different steps and be really diligent about it. So I would say do it diligently, not perfectly. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think are we out of time with the people? Sounds like there's people milling around. So thank you, Greg, for letting me pelt you with questions. And thanks, everybody, for joining. I hope you found it helpful. And feel free to continue to ask him questions. He'll be here for the rest of the day. And if you want, we can make a guitar pick for you out of your name badge. If you're interested, we've got a guitar pick punch so that you can be tagged as a rock star and also have a guitar pick. So thank you guys for joining, and enjoy the rest.
Thank you.